Someone in your life right now is watching every move you make. Not out of suspicion, not out of jealousy, but because they need to know if you are the real thing. They are testing you, and you don't even know it's happening. Stay with me for the next 5 minutes, because what I'm about to show you will completely change how you see the people closest to you. If this channel has ever helped you understand yourself better, hit subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because we go deep here every single week. Like this video if you've ever felt like someone pulled away from you for no reason, and drop a comment below saying I'm ready if you want to understand people on a deeper level, because by the end of this video you're going to see something in your relationships that you've been missing the whole time. And trust me, the way these tests work is not what most people expect. Let's go. The Bible says in Proverbs 17:17, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity." Write that down, because it is the entire foundation of what we are talking about today. People don't just choose to love you. They wait to see if you are worth loving consistently. Here is the truth that psychology confirms, and that spirituality has whispered for centuries. When a person has been hurt before, when they have given their heart to someone, and that someone walked away, or stayed but stopped showing up, that person develops what psychologists call a secure attachment wound. And when that wound is fresh, or even when it is old and healed over, but still sensitive, they do not trust words anymore. They test behavior, not deliberately at first, not with a plan written on paper. It starts quietly. It starts with something small. They cancel a plan and wait to see if you reschedule. They go quiet for a day and watch to see if you check in. They share something small and personal and see if you bring it up again later, or if you forgot the moment they said it. This is not manipulation. This is survival. This is a broken heart learning whether it is safe to open again. And here is where most people fail the test, without even knowing they took it. They get busy. They assume everything is fine. They think if something was wrong, they'd say something. But emotionally wounded people don't say something. They watch something. They watch whether you notice. They watch whether you care enough to ask. They watch whether love shows up. Not when it's convenient, but when it costs you something. A friend loves at all times. Not just when it's easy. Not just when the conversation is light. Not just when your own life isn't heavy. At all times. That is the standard. And the people testing you already know that standard. They've just been burned by people who couldn't meet it. Now let me show you the 3 most common ways this secret testing happens. Because once you see these, you will never misread a relationship the same way again. The first test is the disappearing test. This is when someone you care about suddenly becomes less available. They reply slower. They seem distant. They don't reach out first the way they used to. Most people take this personally. They pull back too. They think, fine, if they don't want to talk, I won't push. And just like that, they fail the test, without understanding what was being asked. What that person was asking was not, will you fight for me? Not in an aggressive way. What they were asking was simpler. Do you notice me when I'm not loud? Do you care about my silence? The same way you care about my joy? Are you paying attention to me? or just to the version of me that makes you feel good. Psychologists call this behavior a proximity test. The person creates emotional distance to see if the other person closes the gap. And the ones who close the gap, without being asked, those are the ones who pass. Those are the ones the wounded person begins to trust. Because a friend loves at all times. Even in the quiet. Even in the withdrawal. Even when you have to show up. Without being invited. The second test is the vulnerability test. This one is more subtle. And honestly, it's the most painful one to fail. This is when someone shares something real with you. Something they are afraid of. Something embarrassing. Something they have never told many people. Maybe they tell you about a mistake they made years ago. Maybe they mention a fear they carry quietly. Maybe they admit they've been struggling. And they watch. They watch your face if you're together. They watch your response if it's over text. They are not looking for a perfect answer. They are looking for one thing. Safety. They want to know if what they just gave you will be handled with care. If you minimize it, oh, that's not a big deal. They close the door. If you make a joke, even a gentle one, they close the door. If you change the subject, even unintentionally, they close the door. But if you lean in, if you ask a follow-up question, if you say, "Thank you for trusting me with that," if you come back to it later and say, "Hey, how are you doing with that thing you mentioned?" that door opens wider than it has opened for anyone in years. This is what the Bible means when it says a friend loves at all times. Real love shows up when the information is hard. Real love holds what it is given carefully. Proverbs 17:17 is not about celebration. It is about adversity. And when someone shares their adversity with you, they are handing you a test, wrapped in trust. Don't drop it. The third test is the consistency test. And this is the one that separates the people who are genuinely caring from the people who are just good at showing up when they feel like it. The consistency test happens over time. It is not a single moment. It is a pattern. Someone is watching whether your kindness is seasonal, whether you only call when you need something, whether your support shows up during exciting moments, but disappears during the boring ones, whether the version of you that showed up in January is still showing up in July. Because here is what psychology says about trust. Trust is not built in grand gestures. Trust is built in repeated small ones. Neuroscientists who study attachment and bonding have found that the brain's safety response is triggered not by intensity, but by predictability. Your nervous system trusts what it can count on, not what is dramatic, not what is romantic, what is reliable. So when someone who has been testing you quietly sees that you called last week and this week, when they see that you remembered what they told you 2 months ago, when they see that you show up even on your tired days, even when your own life is complicated, something shifts inside them. The wall comes down, not all at once, but brick by brick, because a friend loves at all times. Not sometimes, not most times, at all times. And now I want to talk about something deeper. Something that most YouTube videos on relationships will never tell you, because we tend to look at these tests from the outside. We ask, how do I pass someone's test? But the spiritual truth is this. The person testing you is often not testing you consciously. They are not sitting at home with a checklist. They are wounded. They are scared. And the deepest part of them is crying out for something they stopped believing was real. Which is love that doesn't leave. Love that doesn't change when they're difficult. Love that doesn't disappear when they're not performing. Spiritually speaking, this is one of the most sacred callings you can answer. In another person's life. To be the one who stays. To be the one who notices. To be the one who says by your actions. Not just your words. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. You can stop testing me. Because I already know what my answer is. The Bible puts it this way in Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times. And a brother is born for a time of adversity. You were placed in that person's life. For a reason. Not just for the good seasons. For the adversity. For the hard moments. For the tests. But here's the side of this conversation that we also need to have. Because balance is wisdom. There is a difference between someone who is unconsciously testing you from a place of genuine wound, and someone who is using tests as a tool to control you. One comes from fear. The other comes from manipulation. The person who is wounded but genuine will eventually open up. When they see consistency, when they see that you are safe, they will move toward you. They will reciprocate. They will show up for you too. The person who is using testing as control never reaches satisfaction. You pass the test, and there is another test. You prove yourself, and they raise the bar. You give more, and they need more still. If that is your experience, that is not a wound looking for healing. That is a pattern you need to see clearly. Because loving someone well does not mean erasing yourself. Real love is mutual. Real love is growing. A friend loves at all times. Means both people are showing up for each other. Not one person constantly being evaluated, while the other one sits in judgment. Keep that distinction in your heart as you move forward from this video. Now let me leave you with something that connects the psychological and the spiritual in a way I want you to carry with you. Every relationship you are in right now is either building trust or losing it. There is no neutral ground. The moments you think don't matter, the quick texts, the remembered details, the check-ins that don't require a crisis, those are the moments that matter most. Because that is where the test lives. Not in your big speeches. Not in the grand gestures. In the Tuesday afternoon when you didn't have to call. But you did. In the moment they went quiet. And you moved toward them instead of away. In the time they shared something fragile. And you held it like it was precious. Because it was. They were. Someone in your life right now is watching whether love is real. They have been disappointed before. They have been left before. They have been promised things that became broken before. And they are watching you. Not with suspicion. With hope. With the quiet, desperate hope that maybe this time, maybe love can actually be what it promised to be. A friend loves at all times. And a brother is born for a time of adversity. Be that person, not because they deserve it yet, but because you are called to it. Because your character is not built by easy relationships. It is forged in the ones that require you to show up when it would be easier to walk away. That is where growth lives. That is where purpose lives. That is where the kind of love that actually transforms people gets made. So here is what I want you to do right now. Think of one person in your life who has been a little quieter lately, a little more distant, a little harder to reach. Don't react. Don't pull back. Reach toward them. Not with pressure. Not with interrogation. Just with presence. A simple message. A simple call. A simple "Hey, I've been thinking about you." Because that might be exactly what they were waiting to see. And you might never know how much it meant. But they will know. And somewhere in their heart, a wall will come down. A door will open. And trust will begin to grow. In a place where fear used to live. That is the work. That is the calling. That is what love looks like. When it gets serious. If this video spoke to something inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Leave a comment below and tell me. Has someone ever tested you without you knowing? Or have you ever been the one quietly testing someone else? This community is a safe place. Let's talk about it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Because next week we are going deeper into the psychology of why people self-sabotage the relationships they want most. You do not want to miss that. Until then, keep showing up. Keep being the real thing. Because someone out there is counting on you to prove them wrong about love. And before I go deeper, I want you to pause for just a second. Think about the last time someone tested you, and you didn't even realize it was a test. Think about how you responded. Did you pull away? Did you get frustrated? Did you assume they were being difficult, when really they were being careful? Drop a number in the comments right now. Type 1 if you've ever failed a test you didn't know you were taking. Type 2 if you've ever been the one quietly testing someone. Type 3 if you've experienced both. Because I promise you, the comments section on this video is going to show you that you are not alone in this. Not even close. Now let's keep going. Because there is a layer to this conversation that most people never reach. And it has to do with timing. Specifically, why these tests tend to happen at the exact moment when your relationship is about to go to the next level. Psychologists call this the intimacy threshold. It is the invisible line that exists in every relationship. Right before things get deeper. Right before a friendship becomes a true bond. Right before a romantic connection becomes something real. Right before trust moves from surface level to soul level. And at that threshold, almost every emotionally wounded person will unconsciously pull back. They will create a reason to slow down. They will manufacture distance. Right at the moment when closeness was becoming possible. Because closeness is terrifying to someone who has been hurt by closeness before. Think about that. The very thing they want most is the thing that scares them most. And so they test. They push slightly. They wait. They watch. And if you don't understand this dynamic, you will read their pullback as rejection. You will think you did something wrong. You will either chase too hard and overwhelm them, or you will step back and confirm their deepest fear, which is that people always leave. The Book of Ruth captures this so powerfully. Ruth 1:16 says, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay." That is a declaration of chosen loyalty. It is a statement that says, I am not leaving just because things got complicated. I am not going anywhere just because the path got harder. That is the answer to the intimacy threshold test. Not words, not promises, but a steady, quiet, unshakable presence that says by its consistency what Ruth said out loud. I'm staying. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Now here is something I want you to think about deeply. And I want you to comment on this below. Because I genuinely want to know your experience. Have you ever been in a relationship, friendship or romantic, where you felt like you kept giving, and they kept testing, and no matter how much you showed up, it never seemed like enough? Comment below and tell me about that experience. Use the words "never enough" if that resonates with you, because that experience has a name, and understanding it will save you from years of confusion and unnecessary pain. What you were experiencing is called an anxious attachment spiral. Here is how it works. The person testing you has an anxious attachment style. This means their nervous system was wired in early childhood to expect inconsistency from the people they love. Maybe a parent was warm sometimes and cold other times. Maybe love in their home felt unpredictable. Maybe affection was given as a reward and taken away as a punishment. And so their brain learned early that love is not something that stays. It fluctuates. It has conditions. And the only way to survive that is to stay alert, to keep watching, to keep testing, to never fully relax into the safety of being loved, because safety always ended before. Now here is the painful irony. A person with anxious attachment often ends up in relationships with people who have avoidant attachment, people who need space, people who pull back when pressure builds. And every time the avoidant person pulls back, the anxious person escalates their testing, which causes the avoidant person to pull back even more. It is a cycle that destroys relationships. That could have been extraordinary, not because the love wasn't real, but because neither person understood what was actually happening beneath the surface. This is why psychology matters. This is why understanding human behavior is not just interesting. It is essential. You cannot love someone well if you do not understand what they are actually communicating beneath what they are saying. And what almost every person who tests is communicating beneath the testing is this: I want to trust you. I want to believe you're different. I want to stop waiting for the disappointment. But I've been here before. And I need to see before I can believe. And if you can hear that, in the silence, in the distance, in the cancelled plans, and the slow replies, then you have a gift. You have the ability to reach someone that most people walk right past. Comment below and tell me, is there someone in your life right now who communicates through testing rather than through words? You don't have to name them. Just type yes, and let's acknowledge together how many of us are navigating this right now, in real time. Now I want to shift to something that I think is the most spiritually significant part of this entire conversation. And that is the question of why. Why are you in this person's life? Why did your path cross theirs? Why were you placed in proximity to someone who tests in a way that challenges you to become more patient, more perceptive, more present? I don't believe in accidents. I believe that the difficult people placed in our lives are often placed there with divine intention, not to punish us, but to grow us. Because here is the truth about what passing these tests actually does to you as a person. It makes you more emotionally intelligent. It deepens your capacity for empathy. It strips away your need for validation. Because you learn to give, without needing it to be acknowledged. It builds in you a kind of quiet spiritual strength that cannot be manufactured by any other experience. You cannot buy patience. You cannot shortcut your way into genuine compassion. It has to be practiced. And sometimes the practice ground is a person who is hard to reach, a person who pulls away, a person who tests before they trust. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. That kind of commitment is not born in easy seasons. It is forged in the hard ones. And the person in your life who is testing you right now may be the very instrument that God is using to forge something extraordinary in you. Don't miss that. Don't walk away from your own formation just because it's uncomfortable. But I also want to say this with the same level of honesty. Some tests have an expiry date. You are not called to be a doormat. You are not called to pour endlessly into a vessel that refuses to receive. There is a season for patience, and there is a season for wisdom. And wisdom sometimes says, I have shown up faithfully. I have been consistent and caring. And this person has not moved toward healing. They have used my presence as a reason to remain in their wound, rather than a bridge to move out of it. That discernment is not failure. That discernment is maturity. Real love includes boundaries. Real love says, I care about you enough to not enable a cycle that is hurting both of us. And real love also recognizes when it has done what it could do, and trusts God to do what only God can do. Because some healing is not yours to give. Some walls are not yours to take down. Some tests are not yours to pass. They are between that person and the ones who made them. And your job is simply to be faithful with what you have been given, to show up where you are called, to love at all times, in the season you are in, and to release with grace what is not yours to carry. Comment below and tell me this. What is harder for you personally? Type A if it's harder for you to keep showing up when someone keeps pulling away. Type B if it's harder for you to know when to step back and let go with love. Because both of those are real struggles. And both of them deserve to be seen. This community shows up for each other. And the more you engage in the comments, the more this video reaches people who desperately need to hear this message today. So if this is speaking to something real in you, like this video right now, share it with someone who has been confused about why a person they love keeps pulling away. This video might be the exact language they have been missing to understand what's happening in their most important relationship. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. That is the standard. That is the calling. And you were made for it. Now go be that for someone. Now let me tell you something that almost nobody talks about. And I need you to really hear this, because it might be the most important thing you take away from this entire video. The person testing you is not just testing your love. They are testing their own belief system. Read that again. They are testing their own belief system. Because deep inside every person who quietly watches to see if you care, there is a core belief that was planted a long time ago. A belief that says, I am not worth staying for. And every time they test you, they are not just asking, Do you care about me? They are asking, is what I believe about myself actually true? They are giving love one more chance to prove the lie wrong. And that is one of the most vulnerable things a human being can do. To keep showing up at the door of trust after it has been slammed in your face over and over again. To keep hopping even when hope has been expensive. That takes a kind of quiet courage that most people never acknowledge. So acknowledge it right now. Drop a heart in the comments if you respect the kind of person who keeps trying to trust, even after they've been hurt. Because that person deserves to be seen. They deserve someone who understands that their testing is not an attack. It is an act of hope. Now here is where the psychology gets even more fascinating. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called intermittent reinforcement. And it is the reason why some people become addicted to relationships that hurt them. Here is how it works. When love is consistent, the brain registers it as safe, but not exciting. When love is unpredictable, appearing and disappearing, warm and then cold, the brain releases dopamine in the same pattern as a slot machine. You never know when the reward is coming. And that uncertainty creates an obsessive kind of attachment. Now here is the connection to what we are talking about. When someone has grown up in an environment of intermittent reinforcement, when love in their childhood was unpredictable, they may unconsciously recreate that pattern in adult relationships, not because they want chaos, but because chaos feels familiar, and familiar feels like home, even when home was painful. This is why some people seem to self-sabotage the relationships that are actually good for them. They have a partner who is consistent, kind, and present. And instead of feeling safe, they feel bored, or suspicious, or unworthy, because their nervous system was never taught that steady love is real love. They learned that love is something you have to fight for, something you have to earn, something that can disappear at any moment. And so the testing begins. Not to destroy what is good, but to make the goods thing feel familiar enough to trust. Comment below and be honest with me. Have you ever pushed away someone good because their consistency felt too unfamiliar? Type "I've been there" if this is hitting close to home. Because this comment section is not a place for pretending. It is a place for growth. And growth requires honesty. Now I want to bring in one of the most powerful passages that speaks directly to this. 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." I want you to sit with that for a moment. Bears all things. That includes the testing. That includes the silence. That includes the walls, and the distance, and the moments when someone makes it very hard to love them. Believes all things. That means choosing to believe in the potential of a person, even when their behavior is making it difficult to see. Hopes all things. That means not giving up on someone's capacity for healing, even when the healing is slow. Endures all things. That means love is not a feeling that shows up when conditions are perfect. It is a decision that holds firm, even when conditions are hard. That is the blueprint. That is the standard that real love is measured against. and when you are being tested by someone who is wounded. This verse is your anchor. Not because you have to be perfect. Not because you have to absorb everything without limits, but because your posture toward that person is one of bearing, believing, hopping, and enduring. Not from weakness, from strength, from choice, from love that has decided it will not be moved by temporary behavior. Now let me talk about something practical, because I know some of you are watching this right now, and you are exhausted. You have been showing up. You have been consistent. You have been patient and present. And you are starting to wonder if any of it is actually making a difference. I want to speak directly to you. It is making a difference. Even when you cannot see it. Even when they show no sign of it. Even when they seem just as guarded as the day you met them. Here is what is happening beneath the surface. Every time you show up consistently, you are creating what neuroscientists call a new neural pathway in their brain. You are essentially rewriting the story their nervous system has been telling itself about love. Their brain has a file that says, "People leave," and every time you stay, you are adding a piece of evidence that challenges that file. It does not happen overnight. Neural pathways that were built over years take time to rewire. But they do rewire. Slowly, quietly, underneath the surface, where you cannot see it happening. Until one day, something shifts, and they let you in a way they have never let anyone in before. And in that moment, you will understand exactly why the consistency was worth it, why the patience was not wasted, why showing up when it was hard was the most important thing you ever did. For that relationship, comment below and tell me, are you currently in a season of showing up for someone without seeing results yet? Type "I'm in the waiting season" if that is where you are right now, because you need to know that the waiting season